live streaming. Thank you. An apology from our strategic director, Olga. Any other apologies?
Yes, Chair, I have an apology to give. Catherine Nelson, please.
Apology for Catherine Nelson. Any other apologies? Silence is golden. Any declarations of interest, or we take them as progressed? Everyone happy enough? First item on the agenda, item 3, the Environment Health Report. It's an information item. Head over to Gillian.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. As I say, the Chair introduced there an information item is to update members on work which the department carries out in relation to under our consumer safety function in relation to the safety of construction products. We have received further offer of funding from OPSS to support our work in this regard. And there's a project going on at present within the department using this funding of just under £10,000 to help us update our databases and to learn more about the construction product manufacture, supply, trade-in that's arising from our borough. We do anticipate that this will lead on to a wider project, probably during 22-23, and we hope that using this funding at this point in time will help us position ourselves to make a bid for further funding to help further develop that work, which not only supports our statutory duty, but also supports businesses in the borough who are involved in this industry. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Gillian. Everyone happy to note, or has anyone any questions?
Happy to
All
note.
heads seem to be nodding in agreement. Everyone in the chamber happy enough? Thank you. We'll move on then to agenda item 4.1, fair trade road signage. Hand over to Barry.
Evening, Chair, evening, members. Fair trade, as many of you will know, is a long-standing project that we've been working on before and after we all came together. Every year we have to apply and we have to show progression in what we're doing to promote fair trade. There's some information there about fair trade, its goals, its sustainability credentials, etc. The report is asking that members would agree that we would put up some fair trade road signs to say you're now entering the fair trade borough. There are some of these already in the historic council areas. This will be to refresh those, bring them up to line. We will work with our colleagues in estates to make sure they go up. There is a budget of about £2,000, but that can be facilitated in the sustainability budget. Happy to take any questions, comments and thoughts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. I have one light on. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm happy enough to propose this, but I suppose it raises the question again, talking about signage across the borough. I certainly hope it doesn't take as long as the signage that for coming into the borough, because we're in for 5 or 6 years and we're still no further forward. I would say we're maybe the only council in Northern Ireland that hasn't got our welcome signage. And I know my colleague, Councillor McClelland, who's not on this committee, if he was here, he would raise it. So in his absence, I'm raising it again tonight. In terms of those signs, like, where are they? But I'm happy to propose this, and you know, I don't know if they'll be up before the main council signs or not, but it's certainly something that's a bone of contention within our party. I can certainly tell you that. Thank you.
Councillor Hohan.
Thank you, Chair. Look, it's just to second it. I think it's a good news story, and say hopefully it just won't take too long. But I think it's a positive image for the borough, so I'm happy to second it.
Thank you. I said proposed by Councillor Baxter, second by Councillor Hine, and we can get a further update then on the signage in the borough as we progress along. No other hands up there, folks. Everyone happy enough? We're going to item 4.2, the 24-hour event at Craigavon Lakes. Back over to Barry again. Oh, sorry there, I'm jumping the gun. Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, it's just, you're not jumping the gun, you're fine. It's just I want to declare an interest in working with this group and a committee steering towards this. So it's certainly something I'll be keen to see through, but I'll not be taking part. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bax.
Yeah, certainly a very worthwhile charity and a great thing that they're doing. They have been fundraising for quite a while now, and this is just another part of that. It's a very worthwhile group and raising for a very worthwhile cause. So more than happy to propose the recommendation as is, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. We're sort of jumping in for Barry here. Barry, maybe you want to give a wee update on, are you happy enough? You're happy enough? Alderman Mutry.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to second the proposal. Thank you.
I've heard it there is proposed by Councillor Baxter, second by Alderman Mutry. Everyone happy enough? No hands up that I see. No lights on either. So everyone happy enough to move on? The next item is information item 4.3, arrangement for waste management and public holidays. Barry?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, information item. The staff, the unions have agreed these various dates, and it's just really let members know it's similar to what we have done in previous years. Happy to take any questions or thoughts on that. Thank you.
Everyone happy enough to note? I don't see any hands or no lights on in the chamber. And move on to item then 4.4, waste collection service for places of worship and regulated charities. Barry?
Thank you, Chair. And this is really just to bring everyone up to speed on the position of churches and charities and the collection that they have of our from waste. Armagh probably didn't have the same service across the piece simply because they had the Bryson box, which was a completely different service to what we had been running. So it's really just to remind members who had maybe forgotten about this, but certainly as an information item for members in Armagh who maybe hadn't availed of it. I suppose in simple terms, we treat registered charities and churches similar to households. So the details are here, but predominantly we will lift their bins on the same frequency, on the same routes as the houses around them to the same sorts of levels. So in other words, a church may have a brown bin and 2 green bins, for example, like a large family. If they were requiring, for example, 14 green bins, then that would be considered to be above what a household would have. So therefore, we would have discussions with them about the charge for that as a commercial customer, because they wouldn't be treated then as a household. And I suppose that's long and short of it. Just to bring members, all members up to date on that. It has been a long-standing process, and it's just really to underline that for everyone. It isn't a service that we have necessarily campaigned or recruited for. It is just a service that historically has been there, and we just want to make members, particularly in Armagh, aware of this. So then churches, registered charities can contact us and we can arrange those collections as appropriate. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Barry, for that. There's a couple of lights on here. Councillor Pope.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Barry, for the report, and certainly welcome this and the clarification on the free collection for places of worship and registered charities. I guess my concern would be, I guess, on the numbers. I was going to ask, on the numbers of bin provision, because some of these have a number of groups and events, and I'm certainly aware that what one bin, it may not be adequate for that. And I mean, as I say, you're emphasising in the report that there should be proper segregation of the waste and recycling. So to facilitate that proper recycling, there needs to be adequate, bins. And certainly, I would welcome, a potential look for officers to look at an increase, in that provision, and certainly to review that. Happy to make that a proposal, to have a review of the number of bins provided to registered charities and places of worship. But Barry, if you could maybe comment on, if there's been a previous discussion or review on that, on the numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pope. I think there is a policy in that they have come to an agreement with churches and stuff. Anyone who needs additional bins and stuff, they only had to approach and then it was dealt with. And you want to come in on that, Barry? Are you happy enough? Barry?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The number of bins, and this is where we have it. So the legislation talks about that we provide domestic collections, and the domestic collection can be designated by council. So that's why we can say we will lift one green bin, one black bin, and one brown bin from an average house. If it's a larger family, they can have a larger bin, for example. That is at the council's discretion. Charities and churches are not included in the legislation. So again, it's down to members' discretion about what is defined. So a very long time ago, probably before I was in council, it had been decided that charities, churches were given a dispensation to be treated like homes, and that has continued on. So there has been a rule in the councils for a number of years in relation to that and the definition of that. If members wishes to look at either the definition of that, or if members wishes to look at how many bins, then we can certainly do that. At the minute, what we would be saying is it would be approximation to a large family. So it wouldn't necessarily be one green, one brown, and one black. It may be a couple of green and a couple of brown and a black bin, for example. In relation to the segregation is very important for recycling reasons. But if we were to, for example, and this is where we have been asked questions before, if a church was running a play group that people had to pay for example, they would generate significant amounts of waste, but then they would be being paid for. So that's why it was always kept a fairly generic, simple way of working. It also is feasible for us to do, so it isn't a massive impact if we are lifting a church when we are lifting other buildings around it. Whereas if we were to say to a church or a charity, for example, everyone was allowed all of their waste free, I suppose there'll be a number of issues with that. Firstly, it is the quantity of that, which we would have, we can work on something like that and realizing that could we quantify it? And the other is the segregation bit. So it would still be very important that we were encouraging them to recycle as much as possible. So again, it would be the idea, we wouldn't want to give them X amount of black bins and only one green bin. So that's why it was always kept. That rule was fairly generic, and that's the place. But if members wish, we obviously can look at all those different aspects, and we can do that in the coming year, perhaps. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. And we'll just leave it at that then, as you can deal with individual cases as they come forward. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Barry. And Barry, I suppose, on leading on from that question, and can you confirm that the rollout has been completed for all community halls, churches, etc.? Whoever's going to get the bins. So I have had a number of phone calls, but I just wanted to basically know: is it still ongoing? Or and if it is, when do we expect to have it complete? And if it's complete, there's a few we missed, and who do I let know? Yourself or someone in the chain? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Do you want to come back in on that, Barry?
Thank you, Chair. I suppose there's a simple answer to that. There was no rollout to churches and charities. So, as has always been the case, if a church or a charity wish to avail of our service, then they would contact us in exactly the same way as if there was a new church built or a new charity organisation, they may contact the council in relation to their waste, and there we would take them through that. So it hasn't been the case that we have delivered out bins to churches and charities, although some of them may have got them because they had phoned in or for any number of reasons, but we haven't actively sought out, we have not went and made sure that, for example, every particular church has had a bin, because they will already have had a waste service in some shape, fashion or form from all these years, for example, in the same way as there are still churches and charities in both Craigavon and Banbridge areas that do not use council services. So no, it isn't the case that there has been a rollout, nor we weren't going to roll out. We were going to keep it the same as it has always been, in the fact that if they are interested, or certainly if they have questions, then they can contact us. We can take them through the process and then hopefully come to a conclusion with that. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, just Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
I'm confused, Chair, on the back of that. Thanks, Barry, for your answer, but I obviously had a conversation, and there was any place that were having Bryson boxes. I assumed, rightly or wrongly, they were going to get a green bin. So they had to actually apply for the green bin if they wanted a domestic house.
Yeah, that's correct, Councillor Nicholson.
That is correct, Chair? Okay, well,
Yeah.
at least I know. Thank you.
Councillor Hahan.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor McElrath was in before me, but I'll take the opportunity to take the lead if that's all right with Councillor McElrath. He doesn't fall out of me. For the report, Barry, and I suppose it does raise a few issues, like around, as Councillor Nicholson and some of the Armagh ones will probably assume that there was a rollout. There was no rollout, but I think it's probably a good time for more information and to be brought forward. I mean, it's not urgent stuff, but just it would be good even from our own party to get an idea of, you know, how many or how big of an uptake has there been, and then obviously to just ensure that any organisations that weren't aware of it, that, you know, it probably is worthwhile letting them know. And I would potentially draw a distinction between the churches and the charities. I don't know the numbers. I suspect there's a heck of a lot more charities than there are churches that could avail of this, but I would like to know the financial implications of all of it, just for information more than anything. And that should help us make a decision going forward. So look, I would just urge caution from Councillor Pope. I know he made a proposal there. I would be very reluctant to support any kind of proposal that would potentially look to make something bigger until we get a handle on where it is currently at the minute and what's working and potentially what's not working. And before we make any kind of a decision, which would have a financial implication as well. So, but I would support what he said about maybe a review of the service. So, in that sense, yes, I would agree with it, but I certainly wouldn't be in favour of anything being made bigger at this stage. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hahan. I think we'll just leave it at officer's discretion the way that it was beforehand. I'll bring Barry back in here.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, certainly what we can do, we can go away and quantify this in some shape, fashion or form, and then we will obviously take into account what that is likely to be with the new people coming on in Armagh. And I think you're quite right in relation to this had always been a very slow process. So it's a bit like when people are building houses, it would have come on, there would have been a number of a year, so therefore we could adjust as we went through a year. If there was going to be, and this is why we have never had a campaign to recruit, is because we don't then know would there be a huge influx of people in a week or a fortnight that would make have significant implications of how we would physically lift those bins. So when a housing estate is coming along or when a house is built, it comes on through the year and we deal with that. If we were to have hundreds and hundreds of these right through an area, that would be more problematic. So if we were to go away, if members were content, we could go away, we could look at how many churches, charities, what the implications of that is. We could certainly look at the idea of contacting churches and then bring that information back to members. Again, to have that idea of quantities that we're talking about. And that's why there was never a campaign to recruit. It was always as people came into it, because it's easier to cope with than operationally members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. You happy enough with that?
Yeah, I think that's first class. Fair play, Barry.
Thank you. Councillor McElrath. Sorry, I overlooked you last time there, but I looked up at the screen from my own screen and the two lights is on, so I didn't know who come up first. So it's not the early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese.
That's all right, Chair. I forgive you this time. Don't worry about it. Listen, most of my queries been answered. I have to say, Barry, that probably I'm with Councillor Nicholson on this one. I've had a number of queries from churches kind of waiting the rollout, and I did take a wee bit of advice from one of the staff members, and they did say, you know, the rollout for churches hadn't really started as such. So there is a wee bit of confusion in the message. There's no doubt about that. I mean, this clarifies it tonight, and the questions already been answered as such. But I would also tend to agree with Councillor Pope in terms of we have some quite big churches. They're getting back to all of their activities now, and they are looking to get the adequate bin provision there if they can. So I think a review is good, but certainly there some of the churches in the old legacy Armagh area that are very keen to get the green bins, and now that it has been clarified tonight, Barry, we can move forward on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Confidential now. Everyone happy enough to move on? Can a proposer and a seconder to the committee proposed by Alderman Moutray, seconded by someone seconded by Councillor Greenfield. Thank you. Members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into confidential session of council. This means that we'll be turning off public feed of the meeting. This feed will return when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask IT officers please to confirm when the confidential IT is when they have done so, that the meeting can proceed again in open session. Thank you. Agenda item 6, correspondence. Haven't been noted of any correspondence. And agenda item 7, there's only one item of AOB that we've been notified of, and that's Councillor Hohan.
Thank you, Chair. It'll be very brief, but I just raising concerns around the level of street cleansing in the area that I represent, and I'm quite sure this will end up, or could end up, with everybody here putting their lights on and saying the same thing. But it's my role to actually represent the people who vote me in, and that is the concern I'm being told day and daily, should I say. So it is to raise a concern around that. And look, I'm not expecting miracles, and I'm not expecting things to change overnight. And obviously we've talked about this tonight. But it's pretty bad. It's pretty dire in the area that I represent, and I'm quite sure it is in other areas. So it's, I suppose, just to flag it up and you know, put it on the agenda. I suppose it's pretty bad. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hyan. Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Nicholson.
Sorry, Chair. Look, the iPad just couldn't get the unmute button there. No, look, I'm glad Councillor Hawkins brought this up, and I do agree. And I suppose it's like, I'm sure us all on this, and I spoke to Sharon about it previous to this meeting, and my DA, and particularly, you know, Armagh City and things. Like, I know we're sort of in the winter time and things like that, but like, it's been brought up to me, a bit like Councillor Hawkins. I'm in the city most days, and I am getting it, you know. So I'm hoping this review that we do carry out, and we set up this working group, we can get some sort of program of cleansing set in place, that we can actually know when the cleansers are going to be within our area. I have to be honest, sure. I actually can't remember the last time I seen them in Armagh City. I have to be brutally honest. So I just want to put that out there, Chairman, and as I say, and thank Councillor Hawkins bring it up. I don't want to sort of, you know, obviously go on about the point, but I do think we do, as a committee, need to do something about this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. I think it'll all be dealt with in the review in the next, and you'll have a chance at the working group. I think next up, I think, was Councillor Baxter.
Just very briefly, just to be associated with the comments before in terms of that. Also, just a very similar thing when we're talking of that. Street furniture bins, dog filing bins in particular, and getting photographs sent to me daily of overflowing ones. And I know the department's under serious pressure. And there's some really good guys in there when I talk to supervisors and all, and I know that they're doing their very, very utmost and doing their very, very best. But we've obviously got a very severe staffing problem, which needs addressed, and I don't know how you address it. But the ratepayers aren't getting the service that they're paying for. You know, some of the pictures, when you get them through, it's embarrassing. And then when you try and get them emptied, and the guys are trying their best to get them emptied, but they might get there for a few days. And the ratepayers are ringing us, why is this not done yet? Why is this not done? The one sent today of a dog filing bin in Black Skull, and it's literally overflowing, and all the wee plastic bags all around, and that's in a public play, sort of green area. And it's quite unbelievable, actually. And it's embarrassing whenever people are contacting you again. Did you not ring about that? Did you not do this? Did you not do that? I understand we have a staffing issue, but that staffing issue needs sorted.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Next up was Alderman Mudry.
Thank you, Chair. You have Councillor Haughey to blame for this tonight, but I couldn't obviously resist whenever he said it. The problem that I'm having at the minute is the bins that are emptied by the van that goes around on the streets. And if you drive around the Craigavon end of the borough, as I do on a daily basis, sometimes several times, you randomly are coming across bins that are overflowing. And I've had one sent to me this afternoon from Killygamane and Portadown, and it's on my phone here, the street. The bin is absolutely packed full and the litter's up and down the street. So it is, you know. So our streets are dirty because to an extent our bins aren't been emptied. Now, when we ring up and the supervisors are very good and come back to you and are apologetic, yes, 100%. But we're hearing there's a staff resource. So when do we get to the bottom of this as to what the issue is around staff resources now, or that we never get on top of the issue of staff resources? So, you know, I would ask, and we talk about the street cleansing part of the report that's to be done. That's timetabled for in the next 6 to 12 months. We need a resolution to this within 1 month. So that we know that we're not ringing continuously in all the time to complain when people are coming to us about this. So really, that aspect of things, I would ask that something's done, you know, very immediately, and some type of a report brought back to give us an indication as to where the staff issues are in this department, that something could be done.
Thank you, Alderman Mudry. Councillor or Alderman Burns.
Thank you, Chair. And not to labour the point, I certainly thank Councillor Haughey for bringing it up. The standard certainly has slipped all over the borough. It doesn't matter what town you go to, it's the same everywhere. Now we're not so bad in the main street in Banbridge because we have the fella goes around with a wee bin, but you go off the main streets and things like that, and it's very disappointing. Not what we were used to. And if we don't continually empty the dog bins and the litter bins in the streets and they're overflowing, we provide them and we expect people to use them. If they're overflowing and people don't use them, it's going to be somewhere else. So, I mean, it has to be somewhere along the line, as Alderman Mudry said there, you know, if there's a staffing problem, we're going to have to look at this very seriously to see how we can remedy it. We just can't keep on blaming staffing issues. We're going to have to get to the bottom of it to make sure that the borough ends up clean and tidy, just like the ratepayers expect. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Greenfield.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Those Chair, just like others, but it was mentioned about Banbridge, but I would sort of maybe slightly disagree on that. Up and down the street every day, and we still have a major issue with dog fouling, even though we do have someone that's out and about with the cart. The bins are full, but the dog fouling is done. I know one shop recently was posting that someone had then just decided to wipe it all over the front of their shop and on their windowsill and right around when they're cleaning it off their feet. So I think it is still quite an issue in the town and on the street. I know recently there with the heavy rains, there was an awful lot of moss came off the roof and their footpaths were covered in it for days up and down the town. I know it's the same issue in Rathfriland. There's been quite an increase up there. So it's just to highlight it again for that area. And just to come back, Councillor Wilson did bring up, I think maybe at the last council meeting, about the machine we had to clean the pavements and stuff. I just want to really update on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenfield. We'll hand over here to Sharon to wind up on it.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for the comments on this matter. And obviously, there's a number of issues which you have raised. We are looking at holding a further workshop in relation to environmental services matters. So if members are content, we'll take a note of the issues raised tonight and bring you an update to that workshop, which we're hoping to schedule for later in the month if members are content with that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Flaherty.
No, don't, please. Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to come in because honestly, I am tired of talking about this, and my phone has the depot hotline. I am never off it, And to be fair, parts of Pour Down my own day are not too bad, and credit where credit's due. But I'm being told the same thing all the time, and you know what I'm like about the staff. Our staff are fantastic, but my poor bin men weren't coming to my house tonight till after 5 o'clock. And that's no problem for me. I'm glad they were there, because I know for this last maybe month, maybe more, Barry, there's been lift after lift after lift. My heart's been broke, and people get so exercised about their bins, you know, and because it's just one of those things. It's like when my bin goes out in Cairn, and I have the neighbours looking to see what bin it is. You know, it's one of these things. So, and we know that there's staff off, and we know that there's staff ill, and we wish them well, and we hope that they don't be too badly affected. But there's clearly something. So you see this workshop, because again, see that these workshops, these are starting to drive me mad too, because it's just the same over and over and over. I remember, and I think Councillor Hockeyan sat on one with me a number of years ago over the summer to try to iron things out. There's very few of us went to them, I have to be honest, but that's a good number of years ago. So this is going to be the same thing. I want to know, will some of our actual operational staff be present at some of these meetings to actually walk us through what is actually going on the ground? Because it's those people on the ground I think we really need to be properly talking to. That's all I'm got, because otherwise I'll just keep going. Thank you.
Hand over to Barry here, man.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Absolutely. I don't disagree with anything. We are having a very difficult time in getting staff out. However, and I think I have to be honest with you, at this time of the year and nearly every year, we have staffing problems, okay? And it relates to lots of different things. And that's exactly what we'll be working on this year. And we will involve those staff on the ground on dealing with that. So this is not going to be Barry sitting here deciding how we're going to move things and how we're going to change things. This will be done with elected members. This will be done with the staff at all levels, because we are all in a position that this is not linked direct. Obviously, at the minute, it's not helped by COVID, but it's not the cause of it, because we have had similar discussions, particularly about this time of the year, on a number of years. So there has to be a change, and there needs to be a change. And I think this is opportunity for this incoming year that we're in now to make those changes, to embed them, to listen to what members are saying more. Not that we always listen to members, but it's bringing that down and making the change. And the number of things that will be happening this year will all feed into that and allow it to happen for the first time, that we will bring those all together. And I think a very important part of that will be the operational staff as well as elected members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. Councillor Greenfield, you looking back in?
Yes, and thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, it's just on the point there that was made about the workshops and stuff. I suppose, could we just make sure that they are maybe in the evening time that people can suit, and not in the 12th fortnight and stuff? I know there was ones over the summer where, I don't know, Councillor Flagger's mentioned about not many attending, but I do remember being away on holiday and seeing them coming through and stuff in the 12th fortnight and the first week in July. So it's just, I know it's something we need a lot sooner, but something that would actually suit, you know. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's it for the night, folks. There's no other items of business. So I'd like to thank those who came to the chamber and those who logged on, and thank the officers as well, and thank IT there for their contribution. Thank you.